Good morning and welcome to my channel, The Fruitcake Astrologer, where I will give you an astrologer's take on current events and people in the news. So, sorry for the long hiatus, guys. I've been crazy busy, but with the election, I would say 4 or 5 months away, I would like to start doing the presidential candidates. I'm still about 30% convinced that Biden might end up being replaced at the Democratic convention. So I'll probably wait until after that to do the Democratic candidate. But there's no reason I can't start on Donald Trump. Okay, now it occurs to me that we are so polarized that if I say something nice about President Trump, half of the people who are listening to this are going to be furious. And if I say something bad about President Trump, half the people are going to be furious. So, to that level, in the interest of full disclosure, I could care less if someone is Republican or Democrat. I think there are good Democrats and bad Democrats and good Republicans and bad Republicans. And we're being polarized and it's all a bunch of nonsense. It's just this nonsense of saying all women are bad and all men are bad. I mean, really, I don't believe it. So today's politics means that politicians have image consultants who tell them how to stand and how to look. They have speechwriters who tell them what to say and, have beautiful speeches that rouse people. They do polls to say, hey, that's polling well. Say more of that or say less of that. So who are these people really? I mean, let's face it, politics has become big business. So I could care less if they're Democrat or Republican. I vote based on their natal chart, okay? Who are these people really? Okay, so if you're a Trump supporter, you're not a Trump supporter, I just can't worry about that. I've just got to read the chart as I see it. Now, I have to say I am blown away by this chart. I've never seen a chart like this before. He's got 3 really remarkable things about his natal chart that any one of which would make his natal chart remarkable. But to have all 3, now I've been doing this for decades and I've never seen a chart like this. So I sat back and I thought, well, how many billionaires do you know? And I'm like, well, most people would say none. How many presidents of the United States do you know? And I would sit back and say, well, most people don't know, either one. How many people know one who is both a billionaire and president? And you're like, oh, billionaires can become president easily. But I think Bloomberg found out that that is not true. So this man incarnated to do remarkable things. This is just a wow chart, a real wow chart. So anyway, I'm just going to read it as I see it, and here goes. So what, pray tell, is so remarkable about President's chart? Now, if you're not an astrologer, you might not know. But the first thing that is remarkable is that President Trump was born within about 20 minutes of a total lunar eclipse. Not partial, mind you, a total lunar eclipse. Now, I've been doing this for decades, and I've never met anybody who was born on an eclipse. Does that mean, maybe I will notice some now that I've said that, but in general, that's a big deal. Now, that will also make his sun and his moon, which are involved in eclipses, very important. Now, eclipses have long been associated with the divine. Like signs in the heavens, eclipses were omens, signs from God. And astrologers also believe that the soul enters the fetus in the prenatal solar eclipse, most of which are partial eclipses. But there is a lunar eclipse every 6 months. So Donald Trump's total, wow, big deal. Now, here you can see his out-of-bounds planets. Okay, now, in my practice, you might see it once in a while. Somebody has an out-of-bounds planet, and you can almost always put a very behind it, like an out-of-bounds Mars is someone with a very bad temper, and the more out-of-bounds it is, the worse the temper. Out-of-bounds Venus is someone who's very artistic, potentially very beautiful, very great ability to relate to people. Now, what is out of bounds? If you think about the planets and they rotate around the sun on what they call the ecliptic plane, which is kind of like a flat plate. But once in a while, they kind of pop out of the ecliptic plane and become out of bounds. Now, I searched and searched and could only find a few people with 3 out-of-bounds planets. It's very, very rare. Now, that degree is usually between 23, 27, I've heard it to 23, 43. It's a little bit arbitrary. So when I say 2, he's got an out-of-bounds Mercury. Mercury is the planet of thought and communication when he is, he says, I'm very smart. He is very smart. And he's a very good communicator. Mercury is the ability to communicate. He packs those rallies in and keeps that whole auditorium or stadium entertained. He's a very good speaker. Pluto out of bounds. Pluto, and Elizabeth Warren also has this. Okay, Pluto is about power, control, obsession. Okay, now power, everybody's like, oh, power's bad, but power is not bad in of itself. If it's used in a positive way, it can be really awesome. It can change the world. It's abuse of power that is bad. So we want to take a look at his Pluto and see whether, he is a good guy and using his power in a way that is positive or negative. Is he a good guy or bad guy? Now, you also know that Jupiter, which rules his moon, involved in that eclipse, was within 3 hours of stationing direct. Wow. Okay. Now, Jupiter is called the Greater Beneficent, and it rules his moon. So right there, we're getting a hint that this is a good guy. Jupiter is called the Greater Beneficent. He protects. He is worried about justice, etc. We'll get into that a little more later. Okay, that's the second reason his chart is absolutely remarkable. If I saw something like this in somebody's natal chart, I would say this was remarkable. So in and of itself, this is enough. But we've already added the eclipse. The next reason his planet is remarkable is he has an unaspected Pluto. Wow, look down this grid. I mean, he has nothing aspecting his Pluto. Now, that is exceedingly rare. I mean, when you think about all the bodies out, rotating around the sun there, to have nothing aspecting it at all is really rare. Now, that is supposed to, quote unquote, dominate any chart. So not only is his Pluto unaspected, it's also out of bounds. Now, I'm just going to call Pluto rules wealth, great wealth, not just little wealth, but great wealth. Of course, Pluto was the god of the underworld and was supposed to have been fabulously wealthy. So he also rules wealth. So the fact that I'm calling this the Midas touch. Wow. Now, So right there, it's remarkable. There are 3 other things that I would say would also be remarkable about his chart. And, I already mentioned the Jupiter station. That's a big deal. Jupiter station, planetary stations are big deals. Now, also, his ascendant is conjunct the fixed star called Regulus, which is the kingmaker. Now, the ascendant is the most personal point in any natal chart. Why? Why is that? Why are astrologers gaga about time of birth? Because it sets the cusp of the first house. If the time of birth is off, all the houses are off, right? I might be talking about 3rd house when I should be talking about 7th house, So it really is important. It's also the most personal point. What do I mean by that? I mean, let's look, in the world, 250,000 babies are born every day. Now, they are all going to have the same Sun, Mercury, Venus, Mars on out, okay? The moon, which moves faster, of course, than the sun, it moves about 15 degrees a day. You got a 50-50 chance of having your moon in one of 2 signs. So we've got it down to maybe 125,000. Zodiac twins, 125,000 zodiac twins. That's not very personal. So what makes it personal is the ascendant, because that moves very, very quickly. So, and it sets your chart ruler. His chart ruler then is the sun. Okay? Now, you can have twins born 20 minutes apart who have completely different chart rulers, and even though they are identical twins, they will have slightly different personalities. They can have very different personalities, actually, depending on the two rising signs. So, big deal to have his ascendant conjunct Regulus, the Kingmaker. Okay, and the third thing I find remarkable about his chart is Mars is conjunct the ascendant. Now, there's an old saying that our blessings are our curses, and I think that Mars would fit into that. But we will talk about that later. Now, so wow, what a chart. Dang, kind of blew me away. For me, when I'm doing his natal chart, I have questions. You may have other questions, but for me, I want to know, is Trump a good guy? Or is he a bad guy? If you believe the conservatives, he's, all that. If you believe the liberals, he's a racist, misogynist, bad guy. Okay, liar. If you think Trump is a good guy, you think he's out for corruption. He is the man of the people. He's bringing back jobs and prosperity. So which is it? Is he a good guy or a bad guy? And my second thing is, why isn't someone who's a billionaire, sitting on a beach sipping Mai Tais? I mean, why would he throw himself into the maelstrom of politics? So, and the third thing I want to know, is he corrupt? Okay, people say, oh, the reason he ran for president was because he's corrupt. He wants power. So I would like to, at minimum, answer those three questions. Okay, so let's take a look at Donald Trump's chart. Okay, so he's Leo rising, the king. Now, you can usually tell a Leo rising person by their hair. Okay, they usually have a mane of hair. And of course, Donald Trump has been known for his mane of hair, that hair, for a very long time. It does seem to be kind of thinning now, but he used to people thought it was a toupee. And when he walks into a room, Leo people, when they walk into a room, they want everyone to drop what they're doing because the king or queen has arrived. So they love attention. They are very comfortable being the center of attention, unlike some of the other signs, are much more shy. Now, Leo rules the sign of children and risk-taking. Okay, so he likes kids. Usually Leos really love children. They're usually warm and affectionate. And the fifth house also rules risk-taking. And so casinos Trump was known for owning quite a few casinos, right? So we're getting a Leo leaning. And again, I mentioned that his ascendant is conjunct Regulus, the kingmaker, right? So he really is, king. Like, he really does have that I am the king thing going on. Now, if we look at the sun, the big three are called the rising sign, which would be Leo, ruled by the sun, his sun, which is in Gemini, and then his moon, which is in Sag. Now, so we're getting kind of a double sun message from him. So he's Leo rising and has his sun in Gemini. So he really wants to be the king. Now, having the sun in Gemini means he's probably king of two things. Gemini, the twins, never does anything once. It usually has to do things at least twice. So, we have history on Trump. So we know that he was a big real estate mogul, and he's also president of the United States, which is pretty dang rare, for someone to have two such ginormous accomplishments. So that would kind of fit. Now, second house of money is ruled by Mercury, which is in the sign of Cancer, which rules real estate. So again, we see he made his money in real estate, and I would expect that his intelligence, remember his Mercury is out of bounds, right? So the ruler of his second house is out of bounds, very much money from real estate. And it would also tend to indicate that he used his intelligence and his communication ability to get his real estate business going. Now, he has 2 planets in his second house, both of which, well, actually, Neptune was retrograde. So, I'm seeing someone who didn't start out with the best self-esteem. It looks to me like he was betrayed by a woman who is very important to him. Now, you'll notice that Neptune is disposited, ruled by Libra, which is Venus, and Venus is conjunct Saturn. And Venus conjunct Saturn is, the classic interpretation of that is betrayal by a woman. And so I don't know much about his early history, but something really hurt him badly. And that really kind of walloped his self-esteem. Now, at this period in life, the first house is infancy. The second house would be, I would say before 5 years old or so. By the third house, you're in grade school. So I would say, when he was maybe 5 or 6, something really yucky happened to him. You'd have to interview him. All I get is a symbol, Neptune, right? But it looks like it may have affected his ability to trust women. Now, Jupiter is in his second house and stationing. So here we have, remember I said he has all these things that are remarkable about his chart, like, out of bounds planets. Mercury rules his second house, out of bounds. And Jupiter is stationing direct, also in his second house. So we're getting an indication that he's going to be okay financially. So we move on to the third house, which is neighbors, siblings, in-laws, automobiles, communications of all sorts. So it may be his elder sister is the one, because siblings, Venus rules the third house and it's conjunct Saturn. So maybe he felt like his sister maybe undermined him. I don't know. We'd have to interview him and talk to him about that. But it looks like she may have clashed with her brother. Okay, maybe she felt like he was too much of an egotist with all that Leo and Mars on the ascendant, blustering ego, and she wanted to take him down, and maybe he took it as like a personal betrayal. Okay. Now, the third house also rules his ability to communicate, right? Now, Venus is conjunct Saturn. Okay, so he is responsible. Okay, I think he feels responsible. Saturn is responsible for women, Venus, in his family. I think he feels a keen sense of responsibility. Now, Saturn also rules the father. And it could indicate, Dad, who was there for him. Notice Saturn isn't retrograde. Dad was in the home, Saturn in Cancer. But Dad might have had, maybe affairs. Now, we know he was a wealthy man in New York. And to me, that's the disease of wealthy men, is that, to the victor goes the spoils, which is often women. So he may have felt like his father betrayed his mother. He may think that. If you want to look how his mother and father got along, it looks like maybe they didn't get along that well, okay, because the moon is mom, and if you look at the aspect between Saturn and the moon, it's an inconjunct, so I suspect they may have been estranged, at least at some point. Now, if you read the Wikipedia page on Fred Trump, he was supposed to have been an amazing, like a very harsh disciplinarian. He would come home every night and want to hear about all the wrongdoings of his children, and he put mom in that position to tell him, who did what wrong, which would be a terrible thing for a mother to be put in charge of, betraying her own children, so yikes. So it looks to me like they had a difficult relationship, which would kind of tend to support that, maybe, Trump had, maybe his father was, cheating on mom. It sure looks that way. And I really think that hurt him because he loved his mother. Okay, just remember, his moon takes on tremendous importance because it's in a total, not a partial, total lunar eclipse in Sagittarius. His mom to him was all that. So he probably, in my mind, has some anger toward his father, for what he perceives as him not being nice to his mother. Now, we also know that Trump fought the Miss America pageant. And I believe the reason he did that is because he is comparing all women to his mother. In his mind, she was beautiful, she was smart, Sagittarius, she was just, she was beneficent, she was fun. Sagittarius is a good sense of humor. So I think he really liked his mom. I'm not so sure he was crazy about his dad. I'm thinking that the third house ruler, being in the 11th house of government, meant that he learned from his father to charm Venus, charm government officials as part of getting your real estate dealings going on. If I think about it, I think New York City, that may have been a big deal, yeah. Fourth house, home and family. I think his home life was much more difficult than we maybe give him credit for, because Pluto, remember that Pluto, that out of bounds peregrine Pluto, that tends to mean that his childhood may have been pretty darn brutal. Now look at the Pluto in the 12th house. Wow. So I think he's got some real pain, devastating pain from a difficult childhood. Maybe his father was really, really, really hard on those kids. I know that his brother died of alcoholism at a very young age, so maybe they were under tremendous pressure in their home. So let's talk about Pluto energy. In my mind, Pluto is like Ripley from the movie Aliens, the last man standing, someone who has been through something so horrible and so difficult, but they survive because they're smarter, tougher, stronger than everyone else. So Pluto people have been devastated, brought to their knees, and then usually do the Phoenix thing, like rise from the ashes. And so having that remarkable out-of-bounds peregrine Pluto ruling his fourth house tells me that he went through hell and managed to stand up to it. And that kind of reminds me, all the attacks he's faced, right? And most of us would have long ago gone to bed and pulled the sheets covers over our head and just said, I don't want to get out of bed anymore. This is too hard. At least I would have. But he's like standing up, which is kind of remarkable. And I think, when you look at like Navy SEALs and those really tough guys, very often they grew up in abusive homes. And so they're not afraid of being hit. They're not afraid of being in danger because, this is like just reliving, what they grew up with. So I'm getting the impression that Trump grew up in a very, very, very difficult home. And he was kind of the last man standing, and he's stronger for it. He has a thicker skin for it, because he's been through so much, and he made it. He would have seen his mom, which is the moon, in Sag as his protector. Okay, so I think she tried her best to protect her children, and I think he thought she was all that, right? And she may have incarnated to help him through this lifetime because she is part of that eclipse, right? So, yeah, kind of a tough childhood. I think it was hard for his mother to protect them because you'll notice that Sagittarius is intercepted in the fourth house. So I don't think she had an easy job of it. The fifth house, children. Okay, children is ruled by Saturn. that kind of tells me that he may have been okay with not having children. But he did. You'll notice that Saturn is in one of the fruitful signs of Cancer. So he was definitely destined to have children, and I think he was a very responsible parent. Saturn is responsible, and I think I heard, was it Ivanka interviewed and said that when she was in boarding school and she would call him and say, Dad, whatever, wanted to complain about something, she said it didn't matter if he had the president of Exxon in his office, he would drop what he was doing to talk to me. So I wonder if this difficult childhood made him, you either become what the abuser is, or you become the opposite. So I think he became a responsible parent and realized, right. And his kids turned out to be responsible. I mean, a billionaire's kids who all seem to be doing well. Not one of them has been caught jumping out of a fountain naked, or drug addicts and stuff. So I think he took responsibility for his family, Saturn, and his kids, and put in the hard work. Saturn, hard work. And if you ask me, his kids turned out relatively well, considering they are the son of a billionaire, which can, turn out to be, with all that money, it can really be hard on those kids. If I were to see Saturn ruling the 7th house, I would know that they take their relationship, their marriage, seriously. So it tends to be someone who has kids later in life, but then takes it very seriously when they do. So what this can indicate is that one of his female daughters, Venus, or one of his female love interests will betray him. And I think we've kind of seen that. All right, moving on to the 6th house. Now, the 6th house is health. It's duty. It's pets. Okay, so Uranus rules the 6th house of health. If he were going to have health issues, I would expect it to be either, the heart or the nervous system would probably be what's going on. I think he's got a very healthy physical body because of Mars conjunct the ascendant. Remember I said Mars was a double-edged sword? Well, the healthiest sign to have on the cusp of the 1st house is Aries. That's the infant energy, and we all know how quickly infants heal. So to have Mars on his ascendant tells me that he will be energetic. Mars is energy his whole life. He's just a ball of energy. I think I read somewhere he sleeps 3 to 4 hours a night, and people can't keep up with him. And he's 74 years old? And he's running everyone ragged at 74. That's Mars on the ascendant. The guy is the Energizer Bunny, and he just keeps on going. Mars on the ascendant, also makes someone, it's the phallic symbol. The guy's a hound dog. But we know that too, right? We know that he likes the ladies, okay? I think I saw him in an interview make a joke about, I think it was like Viagra or something, and saying I've never needed that, and kind of chuckled. And when I pulled up his chart and saw Mars on his ascendant, I was like, okay, I believe that. But Mars in Leo is the bully. So that Mars that gives him all that energy, that, makes him so healthy and so full of energy, also is the double-edged swords. It makes him decisive. It makes him a warrior. It makes him like to win. That's a positive side of Mars on the ascendant. This guy plays to win. But the negative side is it makes him a hound. It makes him a bully. It makes him too impulsive. So those are the negative sides of that. You will also notice that Mars is being opposed by Fortuna. So it says, I think this energy depletion will catch up to him eventually. But so far, his health looks pretty good. If we go down and the grid and look at Uranus is conjunct the Sun, trine Jupiter. That's usually longevity when you trine Jupiter, and conjunct the node. So I think he's got a mission on this planet. I don't think he's going to pass on to the next world until that karmic mission, the North Node, has been achieved. Now his 7th house of marriage is also ruled by Aquarius, Uranus, and Uranus is in the mutable sign of Gemini. So he was programmed to be married twice. I think on some level he's kind of surprised. I think he planned to stay married and stay put. 29 degrees of a fixed sign ruling his 7th house, but it's a 2955. So I think it's almost passing away into Neptune. So I think he really enjoys enjoyed his independence. So I think on some level he's very loyal. Uranus is usually a very loyal sign, and probably aloof emotionally, cool emotionally. So you got to wonder with the childhood that he had, how difficult it might be to let someone be intimate with him. I mean, not just a physical intimacy, but an emotional intimacy. So this is someone who really enjoys his independence. And I think he marries women who are also independent, women who can stand on their own 2 feet. I would also say he wants them to be brilliant, right? Uranus is brilliant. Uranus in the thinking sign of Gemini is like geniuses. I think I read somewhere that Melania was like fluent in I don't know how many languages or something. So she's, but anyway, so he would expect them to be intelligent and unusual in some way. Okay, someone who's different. In other words, he would be looking for an uncommon wife. Not your Susie Homemaker. He wants somebody who's brilliant and educated, I would believe. Now, moving on to his 8th house of accumulated wealth, Neptune is retrograde. The ruler of his 8th house is in his 2nd house. Retrograde, which tells me he's known reversals, right? We know that his business, I don't know if he had to declare bankruptcy or, he's had, issues with his business. But I would also say there is some deception there, definitely some deception, because Neptune is about illusion and deceit, which would make you wonder, is he as wealthy as he says he is? He won't release his tax records. So there is potentially some truth to that he is not as wealthy as he says, or maybe there is some subterfuge in his accumulated wealth or his tax returns. And it's potentially some difficult stuff in there because Neptune is retrograde in his 2nd house. So there may be something to that. Okay, Mars rules the 9th house and sits on his ascendant in the 12th house. That is yuck. Remember, I said Mars was a double-edged sword. So the 9th house rules foreign things, politics, judges, sports, organized religion. Not spirituality. That's, the 12th house between you and God. This is organized religion, like the church, like the Catholic Church, and I don't mean to pick on that one. So it sure looks like he's going to be in contentious relationship to people from the 9th house. Now look at the Mars is in the 12th house. Now the 12th house is a very difficult house. It's self-undoing. It's secret enemies. The open enemies are the 7th. Your secret enemies, the ones who are secretly working against you behind the scenes, is also the 12th house. It's a house of assassination. And I really don't like to see Trump's chart having 2 of the 3 malefics in that 12th house. Ouch. That to me is a man who will, at least at some point in his life, know danger. He plays to win. He plays to win. And he's a bully. Mars in Leo. And who are his enemies? Let's see if we can figure it out, right? The 9th house is the press. He is in a terrible contention with the press. And he's playing to win. And he's not above doing the bully thing to win. foreign things. Now, we can just go, make a list of all the foreign countries who he's angered, starting with China, I guess, Anyway, so I think he needs to be careful in that area. Now, judges, we know he's had a lot of trouble with judges that are thwarting his policies. Sports, the people who are taking a knee at sporting events, right? Organized religion, I don't know if, I don't know anything like that except perhaps the ISIS. I know he went to war, Mars, with ISIS. So I say that he has many private enemies, and if he doesn't have an astrologer watching his chart, he should. Okay, now twice I have seen this president in physical danger, or in danger anyway. The first time was when he went to tour North Korea, and he wanted to go to the demilitarized zone, and he really had some scary transits that day, and he ended up calling off that trip for quote-unquote security reasons. And I was like, So the second time I saw him in danger was when he wanted to testify before the Mueller probe. He was saying he wanted to come and testify. I'm innocent. I want to do this. And his attorneys were saying, don't you dare. This is a perjury trap. So sure enough, he did not testify. I think if he had gone and testified, I think he probably would have found himself, in bad shape. Okay. So this has left me wondering if Mr. Trump doesn't have in his employ a competent psychic or a competent astrologer. If you think about it, that would not be uncommon for thousands of years. Of course, kings and emperors have had court astrologers, court psychics who they, used as advisors. So to say that a billionaire doesn't have like a world-class psychic on his payroll, might be actually a little surprising. So yeah. They say the reason Reagan didn't get assassinated was because he had in his employ, his wife used a good astrologer. So, so let's hope he's got a good astrologer with a chart like this. I would say he should have a good one. As if it's not bad enough to have Pluto and Mars in your 12th house. Yikes. But to have Algol, the fixed star Algol, which literally says losing your head, right? Ruling his midheaven, which is the most public point in a person's chart, So this is worrisome to me that he has so much danger indicated in this chart. And of course, if Mars conjuncts the ascendant, he's just going to go, walk around making everyone mad at him, right? So there'll be plenty of fodder for people, who don't like him. Okay. Enough said about that. Now, the 10th house. The 10th house, he has a stellium in the 10th house of leadership. So again, we're getting another indication that this man was a born leader. Regulus conjunct the ascendant, the kingmaker, the sun in a total lunar eclipse, and a stellium in the 10th house. Wow, definitely meant to be a leader. Uranus in the 10th house. That Uranus is all about the rebel, independence, freedom, science, technology. So I think he is all about freedom. He is a born rebel. He doesn't care if he goes and shakes up the apple cart. He is here to blow up the status quo. Saturn is the status quo. Uranus is here to bring about great change. Now, having Uranus associated with Mercury is a thinking sign, is genius. Yeah, Uranus is genius. They are, pretty brilliant people. They can tend to be kind of know-it-all. Sometimes that's their bugaboo. They really are very bright people. Now, you'll notice that Uranus is disposited by Mercury, which is out of bounds. So he really, when he said, I am a quote-unquote stable genius, I don't know about stable, but he surely is a genius. You cannot argue that. Now, Saturn conjunct Venus is also considered mathematical ability and is also considered the architect's symbol. So I'm seeing mathematical ability, I am seeing genius, someone who can think outside the box, someone who's not afraid to fight for what he wants, and he fights to win. Mars conjunct the ascendant. So I think in his eyes, this is what he's doing. He's rebelling against the status quo, which, we are finding out that, we always knew Washington was corrupt, but finding out it's real bad. I think it's really bad. Now, if it's not enough for you that Mercury, that Uranus is the most elevated planet in his chart, in Gemini, ruled by that out of bounds Mercury, it is also trining Jupiter, the planet of judgment, which remember was stationing direct on the date of his birth, and it is super tight trine. Dang. This man really is smart. So let's just stop and think for a minute. So the Dems have been trying to oust him probably since before the election, that they're going to outmaneuver him. And if you've ever looked at the charts of politicians, Pluto is very prominent. Politicians want power, right? Pluto is about power, right? It's not about the money. A government salary isn't a big deal. Of course, the corrupt ones end up very wealthy, but in general, they want power. So they're all about manipulation and control and, strategy and outmaneuvering. And I look at this chart and I think there's no way you are going to outmaneuver someone with an out of bounds, unexpected Pluto. You're just not going to be able to do it. And then I see this intelligence in his chart. This tells me whatever moves they are doing, he is going to be 10 moves ahead of them. Wow. I've never seen a chart like this. I don't think they can do it. I don't think they can outmaneuver this guy. I would be very shocked if they can outmaneuver this guy. Now, I want to take a look at the presidential election and see who's going to win, but I didn't want to do it until after the Democratic National Convention because I'm hearing buzz that Biden will be replaced, that he has issues. And so, I don't want to make a call until I know for sure who the Democratic nominee is. But unless that man or woman has a equally remarkable chart or transits that are so off the chart favorable that they can beat a natal chart like this, I'm thinking this man is not going to be easy to beat. Okay, moving on to the North Node in the Sun. Now, North Node is karmic. That again, we are getting another divine message that he was meant to do this. Karma, the North Node, karmic, the eclipse. Whether for good or ill, this man was meant to be here and meant to be doing this. Now, the Sun are our goals in life, what we want to achieve. So he definitely wanted to be a leader. Again, that Sun is super powerful because A, it's its chart ruler, and B, it's involved in a total lunar eclipse. Of course, the Sun and the Moon are always involved in eclipses. So he was certainly meant to do this, and look at the trine between Jupiter and that stellium in the 10th. I think the wheels were greased for him to beat 16 candidates and become the president. Kind of remarkable. You think, a billionaire can be rich, but Bloomberg found out that, can be president, but Bloomberg found out that was not true. It takes more than that. Now, you'll also notice this stellium is in Gemini. So he is a major communicator. Now, we see him twittering, like crazy. A lot of people don't like that he does that, that he's too much. And sure, that Mercury is squaring Jupiter and squaring Neptune. So, yes, I do think he needs to be a little more careful about his communication. But with that impulsive Mars conjunct his ascendant and being such a fighter, Mars conjunct the ascendant, I think he doesn't have, he's got impulse issues sometimes, okay? That's going to work against him. Moving on to the 11th house, which is the government and large corporations. Now you'll notice Cancer rules the 11th house. Cancer rules the homeland. So I think that one of the reasons he is in government is because he loves his country, right? And that sounds really corny, right? But the moon is in Sag, the sign of the beneficent protector, and it rules his 11th house of government. So I think in his mind, Mercury and Saturn conjunct Venus, the architect's aspect, that he wants to protect Jupiter, his home and family and country. That's Mercury, Cancer. Okay, so I think he definitely wants to rebuild this country, architect symbol in the 11th house, and we haven't seen that yet. But I know he's talked about wanting to rebuild airports and bridges and whatnot, but we haven't seen that actually happen. But I think that one of the reasons he ran for president is that because it's in the 11th house of government. Okay, so moving on to the 12th house, which is yuck. Again, I'm going to just mention, I hope that he has a very good astrologer or psychic working for him. No, I'm not volunteering to do it for him. I think he's probably got someone far better than me in his employ. But Pluto in your 12th house, wow. He's got very powerful, important enemies. Pluto in Leo. So I just hope he's careful. I hope he's careful, and I hope he has some good people working for him. And yikes. So anyway, just to summate, this is a very formidable man. Wow. I've never seen a chart like this. If the Dems thinks they're ousted in this guy, I think they're dreaming. He really is a genius. I mean, there are those who hate him and say, oh, blah, 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 but this is the chart of a genius. I mean, there can be no denying that. There is some deception in his chart. I think there may be something in his tax returns, just to, but I think this man is a good guy. One of my questions was, is he a good guy or is he a bad guy? And I think he's a very good man. Why do I say that? Because his moon is in Sagittarius, which is the sign of justice and beneficence. Okay, now the moon is what we feel, right? What makes us feel good. Like if you have the moon in Cancer, you love to cook and you love to be around your family. Now, if someone were to take that away from you, say you could never be around your family, you could never cook, wouldn't you just be like depressed? I mean, that's what makes you feel good. People with moon in Capricorn love to work. They're not happy if they're not accomplishing something. And if you take that away from them and never let them accomplish anything, they will wilt. So when I see moon in Sag and Jupiter stationing and in an eclipse, I'm like, this man wouldn't feel good unless he was being a protector, if he was protecting justice, if he was being a good guy. So yes, I do believe his intentions are very good. Now, why in the world is someone with all that money not sitting on a beach drinking a Mai Tai? Okay, that's something that, like, dang, what motivates this guy, right? Well, Mars conjunct the ascendant. He is a ball of energy. He couldn't sit still any more than the Energizer Bunny. He needs to be in the fight. He's got boundless energy. And I think in his mind, he's protecting his country. Okay, that's another reason I think he ran, is he feels like he needs to protect and rebuild his country. Is he corrupt? I don't think so. Not with that Jupiter moon. That moon is concerned with justice. So I don't think he is corrupt. So there's my reading. I hope you enjoyed it. I will be doing a forecast for him. I'm just going to scan his transits between now and the election. So that will be my next reading. Once I know who he's running against, I will also do their natal chart. And then the final reading in this series will be, I will try to call who will win the presidency. Okay, that's it. I hope you enjoyed these readings. If you do, I hope you will like, share, and subscribe. And thanks for listening.